What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And today I don't have anything planned, and I'm just an idiot who records weird stuff. So what I'm doing today is just saying subscribe, but like sub for 10 minutes. So enjoy this. Here we go. I got the clock right here, or timer. Here we go. I'm stupid. Sub. I have nothing better to do in life. Sub. Subscribe. I'm not trying to copy MrBeast or anything, but this is stupid. I have nothing better to do. Just record this. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for 46 subscribers. Almost to 50 subscribers. sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 halfway through sub 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 subscribe subscribe sub 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 subscribe subscribe sub 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 subscribe subscribe sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe sub 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 subscribe subscribe sub subscribe sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe subscribe sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 for subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 sub 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 subscribe 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 subscribe, 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 sub 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 but sub 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 subs sub sub subs sub 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 subscribe subscribe. Okay, that was stupid. If you guys are watching this, still, I appreciate you. And I'm actually not trying to copy MrBeast. I didn't know what to record, so I just recorded me saying this, which is stupid. Subscribe's now probably gonna be stuck in my head. I'm gonna just keep on saying subscribe for some reason in my head, I feel like. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna live stream tomorrow, so you guys can check that out. Join Dylan's fan club in Roblox and get our merch. I'm wearing one of the merch shirts right now. Pretty cool. And giveaway 100 Robux pending. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video or live stream. Okay, bye.